Hello, everyone, and welcome to the NLC, brought to you by LG Ganton, Corsair, Telia, and MasterCard. Anyway, let's start the day here on the NLC. My name is Excoundrel. I'm joined by Trouble Gulbug and our guest for the week, Froskurin. Guys, we had a pretty spicy day yesterday. It was good, some good games, and we had a lot of I guess stuff to break down as well. But let's have a look at kind of a brief overview of what we saw yesterday as well. And first of all, let's go with the big Trouble win, or rather the game that Trouble was really excited about, which was that Barrage game. I know you're a big fan of Barrage right now, Trouble.
I'm a big fan of Barrage because I see so much individual talent, especially in their solo lanes, and you do see glimpses of hope when it all comes together and it sort of falls apart. You know, it's kind of like the Cinderella story, right? Where accidentally the shoe kind of doesn't fit. It's like half a size too small to fit on the foot. And I think this is kind of the Barrage story as well. They have the individual talent, they have their spicy picks that they can pull out. It's just a matter of learning how to close out these very important games.
Yeah, we saw a lot of individual talent and showcase yesterday. You guys were not kidding when you said that the league was kind of competitive everywhere and that everyone was beating everyone. A lot of these games were quite nail biters, and it was just kind of a ping pong of, one team being in control, having pressure, having tempo, and then just a game of throw and catch.
Yeah, it definitely feels like, from what we've seen throughout our games, it's been those individual plays that have essentially set up teams for success. There were a lot of games yesterday where we genuinely thought that it was going to be quite clearly one-sided, and I can't actually name a game yesterday, especially from one of the ones that felt that they should have been a little bit more one-sided than they were, where it actually was that way. I genuinely felt like a lot of the games, every team was at least putting up a very, very strong fight.
Yeah, and I think that's huge credit to, again, those individual performers. When you're in an ERL like this, you can really shine. I think this Annie on your screen is a perfect example of that. I've never seen an Annie pick do so much damage. Chrisberg as well on that Misfortune also coming up huge. And I think that's what I love most about coming to the Nordic League and getting to see these plays, is that you can see a player really be the difference and just actually 1v9 a game sometimes.
Yeah, and speaking of individual skill, I really do believe a team like Singularity, that we have all seen struggle quite a bit, really made a run for their money too against the team yesterday. It seemed like they finally clicked as an individual player, and we talked about it on the desk too. What do they need to perform well? Maybe they're not that good as a team, but as individual players, maybe they can shine through themselves, and they kind of did. And they were so close to actually taking that game, but in the end they faltered. But it is still competition coming from the lower bracket of the league too. So that makes me really happy about this league so far.
I love that you make that point, because I think it's so important to really drill home. While it kind of feels like, the Fnatic Risings, the Excels, that you expect them to be kind of on top of the leagues in terms of a general macro understanding, these teams like Riddle, like Singularity, because the individual pieces are so talented, if you fumble a draft, if you fumble a play, if you're not quite super clean on your setup, they have the talent, they can punish you for it. And we've seen that in all the bloody games yesterday.
What I want to kind of, I guess, move on to, and I think that ties in quite nicely with what you said, Frosk, is let's take stock of where we are. We're 3 weeks in, right? Let's think back to what we felt on the first day of the NLC. What was the expectations for the league? Like, what were we expecting in terms of the teams that were going to do well? And let's look at the reality. Where are we at? Like are the teams all equally as good? Has the level of the league gone up or down? Like, what are we looking at when we compare to how we felt at the start of the league to where we are now?
Well, personally, I was just so hyped. Like, to me, I saw the academy teams. I was like, yeah, whatever, it's the same roster, it's fine. So to me, that didn't really matter, especially not as a Nordic viewer. But coming in and see Monster Rugby Gaming, Riddle fielding rosters with big names for me like that, I was so hyped about it. I was like, I can't wait to make them clash. Like, this is former LCS level. We're going to get into the league. Sadly, it hasn't really gone that way that I really wanted to, and I think it's hard for them to actually live up to the expectation I personally had with the hype. On the other hand, we had lower ranked teams that I didn't really think was going to perform or be competitive at all, and they've really been competitive as well too. So to me, the big takeaway is that the team I had hyped wasn't really that good initially, or they still have things they need to work on. They're not perfect. And the bottom tier teams are maybe not really bottom tier teams, but actually teams that could give it a run for their money.
And I think it's sort of clear to say that issue, you know, players came out and they were like, Scoundrel, who do you think is gonna be the top 4? You asked all of them. They were like, Fnatic, Excel, Monster, and Riddle should technically be the top 4 on paper. I'm gonna take Monster and Riddle straight. I'm gonna rip them off of their top 4 budge, and I'm gonna slam in their Nordavind and Tricked, because I feel like with the macro, specifically Tricked, have shown a completely different understanding of the game, a more aggressive approach. They're swapping their playstyle mid-game to turn it into something completely different that will work for their standards and for the game at that specific moment. And I think that this is what makes top-tier team that split-second decisions that can win you games.
And the question will be if that kind of retains itself if a patch shift happens. You know, like right now, we're kind of in this, not necessarily a 5v5 meta, but 5v5 team fight scaling options are quite powerful in the meta right now. And so you're rewarded for having better macro, better, cleaner objective setup, and better execution of those team fights. If we shift over the course of the tournament to more of a skirmish heavy meta, if more of like assassin-oriented champions get powerful, then a team like Riddle Singularity might start to rise back up.
Yeah, and I really like this uncertainty we're at right now, because coming into it, a lot of teams had a clear idea what they thought the top 4 was going to be. But to me, there's not even a top 4 present at the moment. I feel like so many teams are just beating each other out. And I think it's way too early, especially in this team development that's going on right now, to say who's clearly going to be the top 4 or even our top 4 contender right now.
Sure. I mean, let's take a look at the cold hard stats of the top 4 right now. We can have a look at the standings and we can see exactly who is actually taking the wins away. Over in Division A right now, Nordavind and Excel kind of pulling ahead, though they have got a game in hand over Godsend. Of course, Godsend playing today. But obviously, Excel and Nordavind at the top of the table at this point in time. Most people expected Excel to be there. Very few people expected Nordavind to be there. So obviously, Riddle at 2 and 2, they're the ones that are kind of, I guess, underperforming compared to expectations. Let's have a look at Division B now. And we can take a brief look at the fact that Fnatic Rising and Tricked are at the top. Now, Fnatic Rising, again, similar story. Most people expected Fnatic to be doing well. Tricked, another massive surprise, edging out over Monster Rugby Gaming, the team that, with those big names like Maxlaw, they were expecting to be up there in the realms of the Excel and Fnatic level. So we are definitely seeing surprises. And of course, Trouble, you mentioned that for us, the dark horses that have kind of turned into actual performers are the likes of Nordavind and Tricked. They are the teams that have actually stepped up to the plate and impressed us on a level that we just weren't expecting from them.
And honestly, I feel like the macro is just getting better and better. It was a matter of chasing the Excels, chasing the Fnatics, because these teams seem to have a better understanding of the macro, right? They seem to know what they're drafting for, play to its strengths, and then execute. It's pretty much a textbook for both of these academy teams. It's a matter of, are the other teams gonna catch up? And so far, the answer is yes. We see Tricked and Fnatic undefeated. Well, this is about to change today because they have to play each other. And I was trying to explain to Frosky yesterday why I really like Tricked, and she replied to me, well, it seems like you think that Fnatic are lucky they haven't played Tricked yet. And in all honesty, I do think so.
I like that spicy word, and even though I don't think they're per se lucky, but I think it's going to be a spicy matchup later. I even predicted Tricked too. But the thing I think about, especially Tricked and Nordavind, especially when Troppel talk about their macro, I think that they're just one of the teams that developed quickly as a team and got their fundamentals and textbook stuff right by the beginning. I think a lot of the other teams are starting to get there, but they're slowly making their way up there, while it's Tricked and Nordavind, it just clicked for them in the beginning, which is why I also think they're doing so well as they are right now, especially in Nordavind, who actually seemed like they had a slow start, but really quickly changed up their fundamentals. Tricked, on the other hand, I have been impressed by from the start already. I think they're extremely entertaining to watch, not only as a team, but also already from the pick and ban section.
I think it's just about a race to identity. You know, when players say that teams like Fnatic Rising and Excel kind of sit at the top, it's usually just because those teams already know kind of what their play style is, already know what their identity is. If it's going to be like a scaling team fight, if it's going to be more of a team fight heavy or skirmish heavy type of play style. Whereas, as you guys are saying, you know, the other teams are we playing 1-3-1? Are we playing a 5v5? Do we play carry top? Can we play carry bottom? Is the Callisto working for it? It's like all of these questions, and until you have the answers to those variables, it's going to slow you down in a very short league.
Yeah, and I think obviously the games we've got today, there are going to be some telling matches. Obviously, the one that we're mostly looking forward to is the battle of Trick versus Fnatic, who's actually going to end up getting their first loss of the tournament thus far. And there are lots of teams today that I'd love to explore when we get to them, because the likes of Godsend, they've got a very unique playstyle compared to the rest of the league. They're a more top-centric team. So I think at the end of the day, we'll get a good stock of kind of where we are in the NLC, which teams are being consistent. And I think something that Frosk mentioned that was really poignant to me was that in ERLs, consistency is key. Doesn't like you don't need to be like insane superstar players if you're just consistent. Like that's one of the most important things.
Yeah, and especially when you say that word, consistency. If Godsend is able to take the win over Ence today, I feel like they are consistent. I'm starting to get sold on that roster. The same can be said for Dusty, because I feel like they have been extremely inconsistent. I need to see them actually show up against Monster Rocket 3 Gaming for me actually to be impressed by it, because I think they have had some issues here and that really needs to be fixed. The game from yesterday really shows up onto that point. And same for Fnatic, Ryzen, and Trick. You know, we obviously talked about it. Really exciting match to go for. And then about consistency, M&M is quite consistent right now, but not the way you really want them to be.
Yeah, I think it's just about kind of like, what does consistency actually look like on the Rift? And it's about ease of execution. And I think that's why Fnatic Rising have found a lot of success, because the playstyle, the compositions that they run, how they think about the game is quite a, I'm not gonna say, like, basic sounds demeaning, but just quite a straightforward way to think about the game and eliminating the variables.
Yeah, I agree. And I think when you talk to Nico, he kind of talks about that they have a specific way of playing the game and they like to play it that way and they just keep doing it that way. And that's kind of what's worked out for them as of yet. Now, we're going to go to a quick break, guys. When we're back, we will dive into today's matches and look towards our first match of the day, which is going to be Ence versus Godsend.
Waking up, the sun is rising. We can go anywhere, do anything. Put your hand in my hand, let's explore. Travel places no one's been before. Leave your fears and hear you calling. Wherever you go, wherever you are, beauty's unique. So sweet, our differences make our union so great. Together we perfect harmony. Perfect harmony. forest of green. Lose ourselves in the blue of the sea. Paint the world any color we choose, or a rainbow with all of the hues. Make the world the way that we dream. Wherever you go, wherever you are, the beauty's unique, the melody's so sweet. Our differences make our union so great. Together we weave perfect harmony. Perfect harmony. Together we will be perfect harmony. Together we'll be. Together we'll be perfect harmony. Stay sweet summertime, sipping in a high. We caught a fever for two. Go together like neon in the night. I know I'm better with you. I know that you see me the way that I am, floating on a feeling with no other plan. You make me feel good, lost in the moment. You make me feel good, hearts running wild. You make me feel good, love like.
Let's go, man.
Being thrown down, the true shot barrage lands on the three members. Taxter is going to get shut down. In goes Maxi, trying to look to turn this around for the side of Riddle. With them for Stormbringer. There's the double kill. Kakan going to get shielded up on the Sky Splitter for the moment, but he's already pretty low HP. Aesthetic can't do anything but watches his team fall apart. Nightmare is just bolting away. Bravado will slow him down. And Magic Phoenix will seal the deal with a gold card. Pitch is too low. Wazor's on a killing spree. The Nexus is left open. And Bulldog unable to find anything. Sorry, Barrage unable to find anything. They will fall.
Welcome back to the NLC. We are diving into our first game of the day, and it is going to be Ence versus Godsend. And actually, off camera, while you guys were chilling, just watching the break, getting your cups of tea or whatever you guys do outside of Britain, we were talking about Ence versus Godsend, and we were looking at kind of like what everyone predicted for this matchup, and most of us kind of going towards Godsend, but a few people putting their eggs in the Ence basket. That's interesting to me.
It's fine. You can int me, scoundrel. I was asked and I said that I thought that Ence was the better team. Now, obviously, I don't think it's like a huge margin. You guys have more comfort with the teams. I will say that in the VODs that I was watching, I preferred Ence's playstyle because, if it comes back to this idea of consistency and ease of execution, I think Ence are running a ton of zone control compositions. It's pretty like stock standard by the book. It empowers you a lot in a 5v5, whereas Godsend are much more all over the board. Like, it's cool to see that creativity, but with that creativity in playing off to a side lane, like, you're making your ease of execution that much harder. So I almost feel that, like, while Godsend might have some better individual players in specific pound for pound matchups, that they put themselves at a disadvantage because the barrier to entry on executing their composition is harder than what Ence has shown.
And yeah, I was talking about, I know Godsend has been looking really good lately, and I honestly feel like if you were to back Godsend and Ence out of result lately, I would give it to Godsend. The thing is, though, I've been following the Godsend members, or at least 4 of them. I haven't been following Hoist, but since they were in the Danish league too, and that's for years now. And to me, I don't know how they suddenly got this good. I'm very surprised about it, genuinely. So I'm not quite sold yet. I'm not willing to call it luck, because I think that the players really have pulled themselves together. But if they make it today against Ence, I'm fully sold on Godsend. I'll predict them in the future. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. But today, I also feel like Ence is that kind of team that has been making improvements every time I've seen them. They started out really bad, in my opinion, and they gradually improved from every game they played. So I'm following that curve and expect them that today they got even better than last time they played, and that's going to be enough to beat Godsend.
But Goldberg, why are you saying that like Ence is the hurdle that Godsend must cross before you consider them like a good team?
I mean, to me, the wins that Godsend have gotten, especially the one against Riddle, was the one where I saw a new kind of adaptation for them. And I need to see that that's not a fluke. And I don't care what team it is against. To me, it's not a question about the players in the team, but it's about being able to play different styles. And if they're able to show that they're not only playing through champion that can be shut down, if the other teams actually prepare well enough for it, I'm willing to go down the path of Godsend to say that they're actually a really good team who could not only play through the individuality of their players, they're actually a good team in general who can play through each other.
I think I'm actually going to jump on the other side of the spectrum and say that Godsend have multiple threats on their team, right? We have seen them play through the bot lane while also through the mid and the top. I think the problem right here is what Frost mentioned, the ease of execution. They don't necessarily know how they want to go forward, how they want to play. We've seen multiple times them drafting the 1-3-1s. They never resort to them. They always overgroup. They've lost advantages through that. Sometimes they won through that, because they're ahead and they play through their win conditions, having more item power spikes and so on and whatnot. But sometimes you need to know the style that you want to play through and not necessarily just rely on your opponent making mistakes, because the Riddle game that Goldbob mentioned, I felt like it was more Riddle walking into their own mistakes and Godsend snatching them off of them straight away.
I think one of the things that we've talked about with Godsend over the previous few weeks is they are the one team that has a different read on the meta in terms of how they want to play. Now, that might be due to player strength, but also it may just be the way that they think is the best way to approach playing the game. And they play topside. They play strong topside. Almost every single game, they look to play strong topside because they have a very good top laner. And it's a different style that they've been looking to exploit more so than any other team in this league. And my question is that something that is viable in this meta, or is it just something that works because their top side is just so strong?
I mean, if you're looking at the LEC level, a lot of professional players will say that you're mostly just blind picking your tanks. Your Orns are still really prominent up there, but there is, the rock, paper, scissors of the different bruiser matchups, the Renekton's, the Wukongs especially, that are showing up there. So I think it's always just going to come down to playing with the tools and the weapons that you have. And Champion, is that how you say it? Yeah?
Yeah, it's close enough.
He's a talented carry player, which allows them to start picking into 1-4 or 1-3-1 compositions. But on the other side, Ence have a very strong, in my opinion, strong jungler who likes to level 2 gank, particularly topside. In 2 of his 3 games that he showed, Taiki actually went for a level 2 early gank on topside. And now it's like the question of, can this carry top laner, if he does go carry top, try to break the 1v1 matchup, or will Ence's jungler swing it back into their favor?
Yeah, and to me individually too, like Taiki, I feel like has been one of those jungler who's improved from game to game. If you analyze his games, you can actually see that his jungle pathing is evolving together with his team play, but also the individuality of the top laner of Nilinali. I believe he's one of the best top laners individually, not per se in a team setting, but the way he plays up lanes and sets us up for his team, even if they're doing rotation, is so good by him. And I feel like that champion is going to be tested by his solo lane playstyle that he's usually done against the other teams where there's not a lot of jungle attention towards the top side. It's going to be interesting to see not only the jungle matchup between Seaboy and Taiki, but also how the top laners Champion and Nili fares out against each other.
Well, I guess we'll see. Draft will be very telling. So without further ado, we'll go to a quick break and we'll dive into it. See you soon.
I'm not forcing, no picture perfect, moment lasting anymore. And I'm not waiting Uncatchable. I'm not waiting for a black unveiling. No complimentaries will get me in the dark. Ain't no preaching. We are a very good teacher. You wanna demonstrate something? It better be raw. I wanna push the question. I wanna force the issue. I wanna relish in silence. I wanna catch the ball. I wanna catch it. You better throw it good. I wanna catch it. Catch the ball. I wanna catch it. You better throw it good. I wanna catch it. Catch the ball. I wanna catch it. I wanna catch it. Catch the ball. There goes that passing light.
Welcome back, everybody. We are diving into picks and bans here between Ence and Godsend. Ence will be on blue side, Godsend on red. And immediately, Champion having his pool just eliminated ever so slightly with the Camille ban.
It's going to be interesting to see if they're actually going for the Fiora ban too. That has been the trend so far. So take away the Fiora, take away the Camille. But what we've seen is that he's got a Jace up his sleeve too. And I believe he has multiple champions up his sleeve. I don't know if this is the way to go, but damn, someone is giving Champion the respect he deserves.
And honestly, if you have teams like Riddle respecting both of these champions, and mind you, Riddle respected them even on red side where they would potentially have the counter pick. They didn't even want to take the chance to play against them. So now being on the blue side, you would have to blind pick something against the potential Fiora or Camille. So might as well get them completely out of the way.
Okay, I don't know if they're baiting here, but Simply is a known TF player. I don't know if they're just... They could potentially go for a Kalista too if they wanted that early game through the bot lane now, as you've removed that counter in the mid lane from that. But also, there's going to be so many priority picks open just because that blue side decided to target ban rather than meta ban here.
Yeah, that's the big question that I have, because either the Syndra, the Aphelios, or the Kalista is going to get through. I would assume that this would be a Kalista ban here. If it's not, then it's probably confidence that they don't play the Kalista, or as you talked about, without the Twisted Fate, maybe they don't necessarily think it's as strong without a viable snowball option. There's the Karma instead. Now, Ence
it's a free-for-all.
to be, or to prioritize, I believe, the Ezreal, whereas the Aphelios team is actually Godsend. Sorry, I was looking at their drafts. So it's a handshake on Ezreal for Aphelios.
I like how you took that pause to wait for them to pick the pick, and then you're like, I believe that's Ezreal. Okay, yeah, the Ezreal. All right,
I was like, I don't want to say it backwards because I know that one of these teams values Ezreal over the Aphelios, and it wasn't.
it was Ence. We've seen them so far. We've seen them with the Karma Ezreal lane. We've seen them with the Yuumi too. So obviously that is what they're prioritizing over the other side of Godsend. They actually have heavy priority on Aphelios too, even though we see they are very champion dependent. Every time Aphelios is open, they will go for it.
And I do like the fact that they're picking the Aphelios over for Hoyes, because he has been sort of a talkative point, right? We're like, what's Hoyes doing? Does he play the weak side? Is his team reliable? Is he reliable enough for his team to play for him? You know, to put the resources.
See, boy.
I have nothing to comment on that Nidalee because it literally haunted my dreams yesterday.
So obviously Nidalee is a great answer into Graves. She can clear just as quickly. Like, we all know this, so it's dissuading them from picking up the Graves themselves, which is why he'll pivot to something like a Trundle. Because it is playing online, like normally you never see Nidalee in the higher leagues when you're on LAN because the ping is so low that you should never hit a Nidalee spear. Obviously, when you're playing in an online circuit, the viableness of Nidalee increases because A, you're going to get Nidalee specialists because you'll have a lot of solo queue one tricks running around, and B, the ping is higher so that you have a higher likelihood of them not being able to dodge your spears.
But this must be some part of some plan here. We saw that Godsend actually defaulted to a poke composition last game too, and we have seen Taiki just have heavy priority in this Trundle too. So they must be prepared with this Nidalee pick for what's coming in here. So I think they have a plan behind it yet. I just want to see it unfold, and I can't wait to see it. And then a Bard, which is so nice here for Sepher. This is going to be really interesting.
I think here you really need to prioritize grabbing one of these strong blind picks. Like, you're either going to grab your support here or you're going to grab the blind pick mid. That's something like the Orianna, the Azir, the Zoe, whatever you feel most comfortable playing individually as the mid laner. Oh no, we went for the Nautilus. Okay, now we're just going to ban out mid laners. See what you get, boys.
See, what I really like here is that we've talked about continuously how Trundle makes Aphelios' life so miserable if there's no Thresh or Tam Kent there to sort of babysit him. And playing with the Nautilus means that Hoyes is pretty much going to have to hold his own, right? He's going to have to be the own man of himself and keep himself safe. Now, the pillar goes down. There's also a Bard ult that can follow up if you pinch Aphelios into a very small place. So I like that. I like the counter-defense.
This is actually just another scenario of them trying to get a carry-oriented top laner or not wanting to put their top laner on hard engage options, because you're sacking your lane by picking a melee support into Bard Ezreal. Like, that is not going to be a good time. Like, Nautilus is fine into Ezreal because he can follow him with the ultimate. He has multiple tools that he can try to track that guy down. But, like, you're buckling in for a bad lane phase, and I think it's because they want to get this impressive top laner on something that can play a side lane and doesn't have inherent hard engage onto the kit, so the support in the bot lane had to bite the bullet.
I remember interviewing Godsend. I believe it was Seaboy that we interviewed, but
yes,
we interviewed and he specifically said Hoyes is the best weak side bot laner in the league. Like, he truly believes that if you're committing to a weak side bot lane, Hoyes is the guy to do it. And I think that's very very sort of archetypical of their style, right?
Can you imagine that statement being like, oh yeah, the AD carry, that position that requires the most gold and is around the dragon and one of the most important positions. Yeah, weak side, play it great. I'm like, no, stop.
It's just sugar-coated, right? It's like, it's fine. We won't play towards you, but you're an amazing weak side bot lane that will
That's
give
what
you
they
that
said.
one.
It's what they said. It's their style.
But that is really also about mentality too. A lot of AD carries, when they come in, they want to be the star player. They want to be the carry. Nice blind pick here. I think it's fine if you want to set up for top lane too. But I think it's really important that Hoyes is actually the puzzle piece as an AD carry that fits perfectly into the roster that is Godsend, especially because they all are on the same page. They know they're a 1-3-1 team, or just at least a heavy top-sided team. So I think it's fine that you got a Hoyes, and the fact that they are comfortable with him saying he's the greatest weak side, I think that also is a statement in itself.
I agree, and I think it sort of plays towards what we expect from Godsend, right? And their draft is pointing all towards it as well. It's quite clear that their main priority with this team is Champion, and Champion's going to be the guy who's going to step up for Godsend.
And now there's a ton of pressure. You know, you have to blind pick your top lane. Do you go for a tank because you see a LeBlanc and a Bard and you assume that you're going to be playing bot side? Maybe trying to go for, it looks like just the viable blind bruiser. Oh, that's risky. Like, Aatrox has a bunch of fine matchups, but he also has some pretty clear counter picks. I think he might find a bad time.
Yeah, I was going to say, luckily Fiore's out of the way, but Kled also one of the options that you've seen multiple times into Aatrox too, if you want to go down that road. So it's going to be interesting to see if they're just handshaking with Bruce, or Bruce are actually going for a hard counter for that top lane. This is the last pick for red side.
Yep, that's a Wukong.
See, the thing I want to see here is pretty much, but I've personally criticized simply on his laning phase. Right here on the LeBlanc, he doesn't necessarily have to focus on the laning phase, right? He can try to push in his wave however much he can, or he can try to snowball himself and his top lane, put champion behind on that Wukong, repeatedly gank the top set together with Taiki, which is something that we have repeatedly seen Ence do with their jungler. Now you can pull up your mid laner as well and completely choke out that one full potential that you have with champion.
Yeah, so Frost, you said beforehand that you weren't really sure who you would give the prediction before draft had happened. So what's your prediction now?
I was like, can I change? I will say this. I think that Ence has really nice backline dive. So they should be able to shut down this Aphelios. I'm curious to see how hard this Wukong can carry, but I do think that Godsend have the easier to execute composition. So after draft, if it's down to consistency, I think Godsend have it.
I think that's probably pretty fair. I think that's pretty fair based on what we've seen now, guys. Frost is flip flopped. I'm going to give anybody else a chance to flip flop here. Is
I'm
anyone else?
Godsend.
You're staying with Godsend, Gilborg. What are you?
I mean, I'm not backing down. I chose Ence, and you know what? They might not come out with the most favorable
That's a good
draft,
man. Good man.
Like, you can have the stats, you can have the picks, doesn't matter, okay? Give me the Ence magic, okay? Easy for Ence, get it all the way. Let's see what's happening. Worst case scenario is I'm gonna look like a fool after this is done. Odds right now are I am gonna look like a fool, but let's see how it pans out after the game.
Or like a hero,
look.
because they have 0 wins.
Yes.
I think if there's one thing to take away from the NLC so far is expect the unexpected, and I don't even think it's that unexpected that Ence could actually win here. Let's hand it over to our casters. Hitbrain and Orcs, take it away.
Thank you very much, Excandrel. Hello and welcome back to day number 2 here at the NLC. My name is Hitbrain, and once again, I'm joined by Orcs. Orcs, we got a Bard in the bot lane. I haven't seen that for a little while. What's going on here?
Yeah, I think it's just when you're picking the Ezreal, when you're looking to have a safe option that can scale up to those mid-game points where, you know, you have your 3-item spike, which is really powerful at the moment. Bard is something that can really enable the map. You can look to play around different areas. You can threaten the mid lane. You can even roam as far as the top lane, and you can team up with Taiki and challenge C-Boy in the jungle, or at bare minimum, offer that level of assistance, because typically with the Nidalee, we're going to see the champion trying to threaten the Trundle in the jungle.
And it feels to me like Seth probably will want to be looking to try and make some ganks happen with Taiki. Taiki's been fairly gank heavy as a jungler, and maybe ignored his lanes a little bit on the other side of kind of, you know, maybe a jungler's role, you know, with pushing the lanes out and stuff like that. So Taiki, with the help of Steph, actually could set up for some pretty interesting ganks, especially with the fact that he'll have those portals to be able to get into interesting locations in the lane. So I'm curious to see how this Bard's going to kind of pair up with Taiki on the Trundle.
Yeah, and I think you can set up ganks really effectively with it as well. With an immobile carry like the Aphelios, if you portal in the Trundle, throw down the pillar, that's a bare minimum almost always going to force a flash. So a lot of effectiveness there. But yeah, as you said, one of my issues with Taiki is when lanes need to crash their waves, particularly the bot lane, he doesn't always show up to assist them. He's very keen on finding gank opportunities, often up towards the top side as early as level 2. But when it comes down to his bot lane needing to crash a wave, he's not always there. And the issue I've had with that is that Kevo and Seth very much like to challenge in the 2v2, and I expect to see a lot of early trading from them this game, unless they've started to shift away from that.
Alrighty, well, looks like the teams are just loading up here onto the Rift. Taking a little bit chill. We have a quick pause, unfortunately. That's why we're back on our beautiful mugs. I'm interested to see, you know, how this top lane's going to go as well, because the Aatrox has come out. Champion has typically been a big split pusher, so I'm pretty excited to see how these two are going to match up in lane. because Champion obviously has been, you know, in this league, especially yesterday when we were doing all our prep, one of the things we were talking about was top lane is somewhat boring in some ways. They kind of just pick their tanks and they just play to facilitate the team. Champion's not been like that. Champion has been more focused on getting his lane going and kind of rolling from there.
Yeah, and he ends up being an alternative win condition for the team, especially when he's offering that split push threat. But in this game, they did really force him off the general split pushes. Obviously, you still see Wukong being a menace in the side lane, but it's not quite as threatening as the likes of a Camille or Fioris. And obviously, the counterpoint is a lot of team fighting presence. So if they do start to look to dive the backline of Godsend, which we expect to see, a lot of disruption can be caused by the Wukong to help bail them out. Because as much as we've highlighted Champion as someone who likes to be a side lane threat, and he still can be, we often see Godsend grouping up, sometimes even over-grouping, but the end result is that the Wukong functions well in the group scenario on top of being a threat in the side lane.
Now, we did see Taiki actually start with a leashless pull on the blue side, so on the top side, so it means Nilly was in lane earlier. Hasn't really got too much of an advantage off it at the moment. He obviously is just able to zone Champion off whenever Champion steps up to the wave as such. And
I mean, you say that, but he's already chunked him out pretty heavily in this situation.
Kind of just proved me wrong a little bit there. Half health now onto Champion. Champion, every time he walks up to these minions, has to be careful, especially with Nilly when he gets that Deathbringer stance, gets extra range on the auto attack. So it can be a little bit painful to deal with. Champion having to play a little bit safer here to start this game off. Bot lane have a good shove for Ence as well, so it does mean that Kevin and Seth are actually just going to move through and look to try and find out where C-Boy is. They have spotted him out on the ward. C-Boy a little bit low, but with that sweep we'll be able to clear out the ward, so he's okay. But Taiki's roaming over, and C-Boy could actually be in for a little bit of hurt here. They're going to portal over the wall, and C-Boy ran in a different position, so it's actually will mean C-Boy probably is just going to lose his Gromp here, unless he can find a good spear.
Oh,
he gets it.
No, beautiful Taiki. Yeah, just a good response from C-Boy, and I like the play from Ence. I like the fact they have the bot lane priority. They make use of it to invade and challenge his Nidalee, but unfortunately it was a good read from C-Boy and he's able to neutralize it. So essentially Trundle just wasting time there. And as you can see from the wave, it's now bouncing back. So Trundle is not going to be able to contest that Scuttle Crab in the middle as Nautilus has already started to move up. They're looking for a gank mid.
Yeah, but Migma, he's got that red buff on. He's ignited. Taiki just flashes forward and finds first blood.
He is dead.
The healing comes through and the tower, the minion autos. He's healing. He's alive. Taiki survives.
Yeah, never mind. I mean, I called it. I thought he was dead there, but the heal came in thanks to obviously the passive from Trundle healing when an enemy dies near you. And he manages to survive that gank. I mean, just really nice to punish the Azir, typically a very safe mid laner. And obviously LeBlanc is one of the few champs that can actually set up on him, but a good response from Taiki. He got denied that bot side Scuttle Crab, and he still manages to find something from the situation.
Really, really good to see there from Taiki. But this is what we were saying. He is a gank-heavy jungler. Question is where is next for him to gank? Where does he want to look? C-Boy was able to move in and steal away the Raptors from him. Pretty much expected, though, from the Nidalee. If she could see an opportunity to invade, you know she's just going to melt through camps. So, see, we're doing a bit of a denial job here. And we were talking about how Champion is a potential win condition for Godsend. He is getting
rough time.
slapped about by Nilly right now.
This was a really interesting matchup for us because typically Nilly is someone who likes to play skill matchups in the top lane, heavily leans on champions like Aurelia in the past, and will look to challenge in the 1v1, and we're seeing that here. So it was talked a bit about in the draft how we could have seen Ence go for a tank in the top lane, more of a neutralizing matchup just to try and withstand the pressure of Champion. Oh, Engage come in.
He's getting ganked onto. Taiki's putting some damage in. A C-Boy does land the spear, looks to turn it around. Champion finds the kill, and Nilly's now the one who has been caught out. He's trying to put the distance out, has to flash away from the spear, and he will survive, but a great counter gank by C-Boy there.
And just a bit of an overreach overall from Ence. The wave was already in such a good position. He just had to force Champion away. Nilly had it frozen. He's, oh, ball's come in.
Oh, he's going to land that spear as well, and C-Boy just finds the kill. Easy as that. That's a big wave crashing. Nilly will have teleport, but he's going to lose a lot of this wave.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so disastrous. Nilly was winning this lane matchup. It was going well. The wave was pushing into him. He could keep it frozen and deny Champion. But Taiki, like I said, he's a very gank-focused jungler. He doesn't see so much about... He doesn't focus as much on the wave management, focuses more on, can I try and kill this guy? And sometimes it can backfire like that. And a situation which was absolutely winning for Nili has now turned pretty heavily in favor of Godsend.
At least there they are able to get themselves a Drake. Nili is still up in CS as well, but Champion now got that Tiamat. It's going to basically be able to perma-shove into Nili. Nili went back and bought himself the Ninja Towers as his base. Now, do you feel this is a different bot lane with the fact that they've got the Bard in here for Ence? Because you were saying to me that you think often you'll find Ence kind of looking for the all-in. Is there all-in in this lane? Is there the potential for them to go for that 2v2?
I mean, it's not so much just the all-in they look for, but also looking to challenge in the 2v2. So Bard and Ezreal are on theme for that because they have the harass advantage over Godsend's bot lane. They're able to find priority, and that's what they look for. I don't really see Ence as a team who like to play a lane which can't contest priority.
Ooh,
but
C-Boy has to flash away. The pillar does land into the Emperor's Divide, but Simply actually looking to chase forward here with Seth and the Magical Journey. Mick was able to get out. And that was actually a Scuttle Crab steal for the side of Godsend.
It was a little bit precarious there for C-Boy, but does manage to get away despite the best efforts from Simply and Seth. And I do like to see that again, Bard making use of the ability to roam around the map and assist the team. Will it be able to get a plate here in the mid lane? And that's the power of the Ezreal Bard. I mean, yes, they have the harass in lane, but more than that is the safety of the Ezreal allows the Bard to freely roam and impact the map.
Yeah, Kevo quite happy on this Ezreal to play safe in the bot lane. He is shoving up currently, but with that shift available and the flash and the heal, he's able to get out nice and easy. Now you can see Seth moving back down to try and help out. Actually, looks like they're just going for a full reset here. Almost got all the components for that Mirror Mana. With the Dragon down, it actually looks like we are going to see that 8-minute switch we're pretty used to seeing. Now, sometimes we do see, especially with Aphelios lanes, they don't switch and they just look to try and get plates early. And try and just get funnel a bunch of gold onto the Aphelios. And we'll have to see if Hoyes actually does go for this base, because for the moment, it looks like he's hanging about. And even if he did reset, it'd be very late to that.
I'd like to see bot lane and see the state of the wave right now, because if they have a big enough wave in the bot lane, they could use this to crash into the tower.
Now, Aatrox does have at least AoE clear available to him. He has to get fairly close to the wave. So it might be a little bit harder, especially with him having his ultimate as well. The World Under gives him a lot of sustain.
Yeah,
it looks like with C-Boy over there, he doesn't feel comfortable stepping around.
They've been stacking up this wave for quite a while, so it's decently sized. They have the right guns set up for Hoyes to just shred through this tower. And they have C-Boy, he gives even more attack speed with the heal. Just a really good call from Godsend here, not to match on the swap. Yes, the Herald is likely going to get taken by Ence, but they're able to get a ton of damage onto this tower already. One thing is, we do see Simply looking to try and contest on this side of the map. They've roamed down the Bard and the LeBlanc to try and stop this.
Yeah, so he was going to get slowed by that auto attack, but Nili and Simply not really feeling it right now. And Taiki and Kevo, they're going to be the ones to try and answer out for some plates themselves here. Nili still has to be careful. Lots of members waiting around in the wings, but the wave is too small for them to actually push anymore.
Yeah, that's the important thing. They stopped the pressure. They thinned the wave out. They stopped the DPS from the Aphelios, and they gave a bit of breathing room. And now Ence can look to move pressure up towards top, and they should be able to potentially equalize or even just take this tower first with the Herald. I think they will end up winning this race. So good move from Ence. It was a nice decision from Godsend, but the answer from Ence stopped that from happening.
There are 2 plates on here. This race is actually going to be quite close with that Demolish proc, but it should just be Ence favored. It was close. And I think Godsend actually did make the right move here, contesting and getting a lot of gold onto both C-Boy and Hoyes with them getting this turret. Well, again, Champion will be able to stop a second charge, so that won't be going down either.
Again, something to highlight is the fact that you're looking at the gold being put onto the Aphelios. They also have this Azir in the mid lane. I feel like Godsend can be a little bit more comfortable if you're trading evenly, whereas Ence do want to be applying a bit more pressure, especially when you're LeBlanc, you want to be trying to get a lead in the mid lane. And right now, is not behind the Azir as such, but hasn't really had too much impact so far.
Now, outside of that roam he's been able to do, not really able to have too much else here for Simply. Now, Dragon spawning up. Everybody's moving back towards that bot side. There's nothing top lane, really. Especially if you're Ence with that tower now down. And we might just see Kevo stay in the mid lane now just to be a bit of a wave clear duty. Although Taiki is maybe looking for something here. He has that pillar. Might try and interrupt Mikmir for the shift, but doesn't want to hold it for now. They are just going to get control of the lane, shove the minions in, and move over towards this river. Clear out the vision, and then move on to this mountain drake. It'll be the second drake of the game for Ence, unless Godsend want to go for some kind of contestation here. Taiki isn't actually on the dragon. The fate's cool. Doesn't actually land onto anyone. That has been using this. The teleport actually getting used by Mikmir. He's looking to join in. Hook lands onto Seth. The spear goes onto Nilly on the backline. That'll be the dragon secured as the True Shot Barrage goes down. Champion gets himself the Cyclone off onto the AD carry. Now Seth will just get taken down as he gets the stun on to one, but Champion will take out Seth. A kill for Dragon.
I mean, I think overall, Ence obviously wouldn't want to lose members there, but they got the dragon. That was the goal. Obviously, with the... Oh, might see a bit more here.
That was a pretty decent pillar for Taiki to make sure he was okay.
Yeah, just block them off. But it's one of those situations where when you have that early pressure, you want to start stacking dragons, force Godsend to contest you, especially when Ezreal is on his big item spikes, the 2 and 3 items. That is a great opportunity to force Godsend to need to fight you over an impending dragon soul. So a good move from Ence, good setup to go for the dragon. And as much as they did lose one member, ultimately I think you're fine with that trade.
Doesn't taking a lot of damage. Seth does use that magical journey. Pedersen flashes forward, gets the tether and the root. The Moonlight Vigil will spread around with the Infernum. And Hoyes gets an easy kill onto Seth, just overstepping on the Bard.
It's a little bit disrespectful there. You have to respect the pick potential, the engage potential of this Nautilus. Big factor why they picked this for Pedersen, often looking to root move on the map. And it's their chance to sort of turn things around on Ence and delay some of the pressure they have. Now, we'll see a response where they look to punish this topside jungle, but you can see Seaboy is doing the same, and this entire red side jungle of Ence is just covered in vision from Godsend.
Yeah, it's completely red, actually. I mean, a few of those are Nidalee traps, so somewhat not as much vision. Obviously, I'll have to be stepping on those. Get more words out eventually. But let's play Ence are looking to contest into this mid lane, try and get some last and final plates here. Just to be a little careful for Hoyes, but members are closing in, and Steph actually uses that magical journey to get away.
Good move just to pressure the plates. They are going to time off soon, but quite a few picked up by Ence. We do still see a significant gold lead over the Godsend thanks to those kills. And obviously the CS discrepancy has opened up in the jungle. We've seen Seaboy with a 2-level lead over Taiki. And we expect that from Nidalee, and obviously the Trundle does serve a role into the later stages of the game as that tanky front line. But I just think it's a little bit concerning. You know, when you have the likes of a LeBlanc in the mid lane, you would like to have a lead on Simply.
All right, well, 15 minutes on the clock. It's a 2,000 gold lead to Godsend right now. A lot of that coming through the fact that they just have a massive kill advantage. And so are making some plays to keep themselves relevant. You see the Ezreal now got the Sheen, got the Manamune. Not fully stacked it up yet, however, but is getting there.
Looks like Kevo's going towards the Gauntlet, so going to be a pretty hard target for Champion to assassinate in the fights. But ultimately, I feel like Champion's role doesn't really need to do that. You don't need to be threatening the Ezreal. You just need to be protecting the Azir and the Aphelios in those team fights, making sure that they can get off the DPS needed for you to win out. You see the Infinity Edge picked up by Hoyes. They're still a while away from really those big breakpoints. I think 2 items is where you see the Aphelios really come online, and then 3 is where, with the Death Stance, it's just very hard to deal with.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really hard to deal with when he picks that up. Now, Retail's spawned up. And don't really have the vision, but neither did Godsend around the area. But we may see some kind of contention for that. We'll allow one of these teams to crack open this mid lane. And once you get that, you can start to open up the map a little bit more, make some more decisive kind of vision plays. And Taiki is going to be the one to start it up here. Seth actually just eating traps and clearing out some of this vision. As Seaboy still looking to see if he can make something happen.
I mean, this Herald is literally mid-tower. If this goes down to Ence, they will just throw it down mid and take it. So they kind of want to deny that, and they're going to give it a go.
Look for Simply. He's on the flank. That's going to be the Rift Herald picked up. The teleport's getting used. Ence are looking to fight. The Face Call's flashed away as the True Shot Barrage lands onto 2, but nearly pops the World Ender as he looks for Hoyes. Hoyes is able to break the Infernal Chains, but Pedersen has to go golden in the middle of the fight. That's a massive Moonlight Vigil coming in from Hoyes, and now Mikma has joined into the fray. Kevo's taking himself a kill onto the support, but now Champion looking to chase onto him with that Cyclone. He has to shift and jump away as he flashes over the wall. Champion taking some tower shots, and he gets shut down by Kevo. Godsend looking for the play, but unable to answer out. C-Boy is able to cheekily steal away the crab with a spear as the dragon spawns up, and that will just be their consolation prize.
I still think Ence can contest this, though. Simply's ult's coming up soon. Taiki has flash. I don't think he let them take this for free.
Yeah, they start the squishier members for Godsend. Taiki might just flash over the wall. Can't get the steal away in time. A little bit too slow to go in for that one. And maybe we'll see a rotation towards the mid lane for Taiki. Now he's got that Rift Herald in his pocket.
Wait, ooh.
Wait, no one picked it up.
No one grab it?
No one picked it up!
Oh, no.
All that effort. They will at least still get this turret for themselves as they brute forced.
I mean, that was the goal.
But that is a big, big mistake.
Yeah, I mean, the goal was to get the mid tower, and they do still get that. So ultimately, it's not going to hinder them that much. But still a little bit of an oof. And we'll have a replay so you can see exactly how things
are happening in real time.
Never mind. We're back in real time. Just like to show you the... Did you know we have a cool animation to show when we have replays? Well, now you do. And there it was looking all cool.
All right, well, Nilly gonna shove in this bot lane here. That tower has been untouched this game, actually. Hasn't had a single bit of damage done to it. Gavin now has his Iceborne Gauntlet, so he's got his 2 items. Hoyes is sitting on just his Infinity Edge and an additional Crit Cloak. Obviously, does have a more expensive build path. I'd love to see a quick toggle on the gold, actually, though, to see the differences between our players in this game. Thank you very much, observers. You can see that in the bot lane, it is still an advantage to Kevo. He did get a shutdown onto Champion. He has also got that additional kill.
The gold is pretty even, but ultimately, I think Godsend made the right play with that Herald contest, because as much as they lost out in members, they were able to rotate the pressure they had over the dragon, and now... Oh, I've seen Gates coming in on Pedersen.
Yeah, Pedersen does get snared up. A great pillar and an insane face cool. Hoyes is just melted as Kevo gets himself his 3rd kill. Godsend's just getting played right now. They got a magical journey onto Pedersen right in his face. The slow lands the hook, does bail Pedersen out, but...
Yeah, and it's just finding some great momentum here. They pick Hoyes' beautiful magical journey, and then simply... And this is one of the things, the LeBlanc into the Azir matchup, you don't want to be in a side lane against that champion. Simply does manage to find the solo kill, and means they can just start applying pressure to this mid lane tower.
Yeah, they might even be able to take this, to be honest. They got enough brute force on them. C-Boy can't really clear through the wave. I mean, that'll be the mid lane tier 2 going down, while Ence's mid lane is still very healthy, so this is great for them.
This is where Ence really are strong. We're getting towards the point where the Ezreal spikes hard. LeBlanc super relevant on that one item. Hasn't quite got the penetration from the Oblivion Orb. Has now got that. So these are really big spikes. We'll look for the Manamune to get fully stacked by Kevo. That is really... Oh, just comes in as I'm talking about it. Same as the Oblivion Orb. This is where Ence are at their strongest. This is where they really should be looking to take firm control of the game. That dragon in the next 2 minutes should be there. And then hopefully off the fight for that, they can translate it into a Baron. That is the game plan for this Ence roster. For Godsend, the longer the game goes on, the more comfortable they're going to feel. Once Hoyes becomes super powerful, once the Azir becomes more relevant than the LeBlanc, and hopefully can pick up things like a Banshees to mitigate her pressure, that's where they will feel really comfortable. So... look to see Ence trying to establish control, especially towards that dragon area for the next minute and a half.
C-Boy consistently trying to steal the spears here. Not actually going to get it. Death Dance well on his way here for Kevo at this point. He's got himself a Warhammer. Got the Vampiric Scepter as well. Well, Hoyes has now been able to pick a Zeal up. So... building towards his Hurricane, got an extra dagger as well, so he's not overly far off. I think that makes him about 1,100 gold, roughly. Off that item, he's got almost 800 in his pocket. So he's fairly close to getting his second item. But as we hit this 20-minute mark, 21-minute mark, gold is even. Ence has done a good job to pull that 2k deficit back. Got themselves those 2 additional turrets as well.
We now see
going for a very cheeky recall here. They know where he is, and he's going to get the pillar off, but Steph actually can find him here. Lands the stun onto the clone, and that's the slow auto attack into the Tempered Fate. Champion has to flash away.
That's big. They get the flash from the Wukong, which is important. Sure, they've lost the Tempered Fate, but it mitigates a lot of the pressure he can apply. And this is what we expected from Ence. Moving down towards the dragon area, establishing control, simply gets the mid priority. So now they can focus on this dragon. And if Godsend want to try and contest it, they have to push through the fog of war. TP is coming in bot from the Wukong. Looks like they are trying to get in on this.
Simply. It's going to go for a little something onto Bederson. The True Shot Barrage gets thrown out and hits nobody. Meanwhile, a hook does also go a little bit wide. Simply goes in with a double distortion, chunks out onto Hoyes. Hoyes is sent packing. Obviously, C-Boy does have the heals to work with, but even so, pretty rough start there for Hoyes to get chunked out. Simply chugging away on those potions as the hook does land onto Bederson, into the spear, into the Moonlight Vigil. That's a great start for Godsend. Bederson, though, will fall down. Kevo continues just to snipe over the wall on the Ezreal. And Ence now, with the numbers advantage, are going to start up this dragon.
Yeah, Simply will play interruption for anyone who tries to contest. You see him fishing now, but won't want to challenge Champion, but they get the dragon, and that's the important thing. These are the big spikes for Ence. They want to be claiming every objective. Now, what I will say is that it's not like Godsend flopped in that fight. They lost one member, but this isn't enough for Ence to translate into a Baron. And now there's no massive reason for Godsend to contest Ence for another 4 minutes 45. Simply
just recalling in vision for Champion there, and he will fall. C-Boy able to get himself that kill. Does look to try and steal away the Krugs, but unable to do. Now Ence are actually rotating a lot of members towards this bot side. Steph has got that Fate's Call coming off right this moment. So if he wants to commit, he can, but there's ways to catch, there's jungle minions to kill, and it's just not worth it.
They just have to essentially take the loss there. Simply dies for free. And it's a nice little bit of gold over the Godsend. They get a tower topside as well. It's going to keep them equal. But the end result is they don't massively lose anything. Just a bit of setup, a bit of tempo, a bit of pressure. So now, Ence looking to get some control around the Baron area. So has to be a bit careful here.
Yeah, that Magical Journey does kind of give him a get out of jail free card.
And I want to see them setting a vision around the Baron area for the next minute or two and looking to try and find picks. Force Godsend to face check and try and dispatch the members. Now, I am going to say, I feel like Godsend have got a pretty free pass here because ultimately the Baron is quite slow from the side of Ence. And as a result, you're not under too much threat to really check this one. As long as you here and there have Nidalee who can dash over, throw a spear or a control ward down, you should be fine. The main thing is this dragon coming up in 3 minutes. Now, it is a Cloud Soul, not the most impactful, not the one you're most worried about. But if you can deny it, then obviously Godsend should look to do so. Now, Taiki... Okay, you're not really going to solo that, dude, but you can start
Definitely not, but he gave it a go.
And it's just controlling this area they're now moved into and looking for these picks. And you can see Ence playing very aggressive, trying to challenge. But Godsend, they just don't need to step up that far. They know there's very little risk of the Baron being started and completed, so they can play things slow enough to continue scaling. We've seen the Runan's picked up by Hoyes, which is a nice power spike, and Mikmin nearly has that Banshee's Veil to give him safety against Simply. Those are sort of important factors they're looking towards. Now, Death's Dance has been finished for Kevo, and obviously that is massive for the Ezreal. It just makes him very hard to deal with when he's already outputting a lot of damage. So I feel like the game is very much on a knife's edge, and this next Dragon Spawn is really what will decide it. If Ence can take a good fight on it, get the soul, and then get Baron, then the game really can be theirs. But if either of those go wrong, I think Godsend will just have it in the bag.
C-Boy just completely zoned out of his jungle here. By Steph and Taiki. Ence actually maybe looking to start up this Baron. Like I said, it's not particularly the fastest one, but they're going to give it a go. They had a little bit of a numbers check earlier. Spear will connect, and Simply's on zoning duty for the moment. is going to have to jump into the pit to join his team, and Godsend are now looking to collapse. Ence actually want to see if they can find something. It was a bit of a bait and switch.
Yeah, I mean, you saw how slowly it was going down, and you saw how slowly Godsend were approaching. They knew they had all the time in the world to contest that one. And this is part of the problem with Ence right now, is that that dragon that they missed out on has delayed the game, and there's not really much they can do for those extra 5 minutes. They're kind of just waiting here before they get a chance to contest this Dragon Soul. A minute 20, they all go for the reset now. They're now going to move over to the dragon and try and establish control. And that's really where we're looking for a big fight to sort of materialize when they're contesting this soul. I actually think Godsend could afford just to give it up, but I feel like they might feel confident enough to go for the fight now. We have the resistances on Hoyes from the Aegis. He's got the Executioner's Calling. We have the Banshees finished for Mikma. So they're in a decent spot in terms of power spikes. I think they probably could contest this one, but the caution is if they lose a fight around this dragon, Ence could take the Baron, and that would suddenly turn the game on its head.
So the next 40 seconds are just going to be a bit of a waiting game. There isn't too much vision really down around this dragon yet. So Ence maybe want to move some people over, especially with that Scuttle Crab taken by Godsend. It means they do have some permanent vision in the area for the moment. There's one ward by the blue, and then there's a pink ward placed down by Godsend in the pit and nearby. Simply will find Champion, and they do spot out that ward finally, so they are going to clear away all of the vision that Godsend have in the area.
I think they're trying to push mid and then rotate through, but they've waited a long time to do this, in all honesty. My vibe from how they're positioning is they don't care about the dragon, which I think is the right call. If you coin flip a fight here, you can cost the entire game. And ultimately, it could be really costly just for a Cloud Soul. Instead, they're moving up towards the Baron.
Well, this is a fast Baron. Godsend with Hoyes and Mikma can actually cut through this fairly quickly. Now, they weren't completely in the same position or ready to go for it. Pedersen goes for a hook, and they actually continue on the Baron. Kevo is able to pop the Banshee's Veil, and he is chunking through Pedersen. The Fate, Tempered Fate actually catches out onto Hoyes as Seth gets stunned up.
Yeah, that was a bit risky, especially against an Ezreal who has the ability to harass you so heavily on the objective. I like the concept of the play. I think they should have backed up a little bit sooner, but ultimately they do manage to get out. They lose the Dragon Soul. I think it's fine. I think you wait until you're spiking harder than Ence, get the Death Stance for Hoyes, and then maybe look to take either the Elder Dragon or the Baron fight. But I feel like if you commit to this dragon and you end up losing that fight, you could just end up throwing away the game. So I don't fault Godsend for pulling away from that one. But ultimately, Ence got what they wanted. They got the Dragon Soul. They also burnt the flash from Hoyes, which is pretty important. And now they can look to, again, get vision control around that Baron, look to challenge on it and find picks on the back of Simply, and then try and transition it into taking that objective.
Well, that is Soul picked up for Ence. Kevo very, very strong right now. Obviously got those 3 core items. He's now building towards his Blade of the Rune King next. Meanwhile, Hoy's sitting on the Infinity Edge. The components, not all of the components, but a lot of the components for his Death Dance with his Hurricane and Infinity Edge. So he's actually a little bit weak. He's a little bit further behind Kevo at the moment. So if Godsend actually want to get into this game, it feels like there's a bit more of a waiting game for them before they can actually start to challenge Ence.
You got to think of what the goals for the champions are, because ultimately Hoyes is just trying to do as much damage as he can to this frontline defense and shred through it while also being safe. And I think once he hits the Death Stance, he's going to be able to achieve that pretty well, as long as Simply isn't too much of a threat. But again, the Death Stance resistance is huge in negating him. Kevo, he is passing his peak. Obviously, he will continue to get more items, but really, he spiked pretty hard there. And ultimately, it's not about him doing the most damage possible. It's about his team threatening Hoyes and Mikma. That's the win condition.
It's about also the setup kind of going into any fights where he can land some additional poke before it starts to even dissuade the fights from happening in general.
You see Ence setting up around this topside jungle, looking to contest this vision as best as possible and force someone to face check, but Godsend are playing this patient. They know they're not really pressured to try and face check this urgently. They don't have vision on the Baron for significant time. They do throw around the blue trinket. They've seen it started, and they're just going to slowly approach.
Let's let Ence do decide to give it up, though. as they spot out a couple of members moving through the jungle, the spear as well, and the scry gets used.
This is one of the issues, is that not only is it very easy for Nidalee to get in the pit with all the mobility, she has a great execute on the Baron. She's higher level than Taiki. So it just ends on going to finish this Baron. Every time they start it up, they're trying to bait Godsend into a fight. That is the goal of this. And Godsend just keep rotating these blue trinkets, keep spotting them out, and looking to contest. I will say, though, Hoist was on a reset, though, so they might commit to this more heavily.
Yeah, they are really committing here. Simply gets a bit of a choke onto Mikma. They throw out the Tempered Fate. The exhaust goes onto Hoist, and he is popped. A 3-man divide will not do enough to disengage the team as everybody is jumping in. Steph comes into the back with Magical Journey. Kevo and Simply not quite in the fight, actually. And Godsend now looking to try and turn this around. Mikma mostly untouched for the moment as they find a double kill onto their Nidalee. A good stun by Steph, though, will be there. Simply tries to get a bit of damage into Champen. Mikma sends the soldiers forward. Isn't the real Simply he's going for here, though. Pedersen lands a hook, but he is getting chunked out by Kevo. Kevo doing some pretty decent damages. They do get the Tempered Fate. They do get the Magical Journey. Kevo has to flash away. Good stun by Steph. And now the health bars on Godsend are very, very low. So that True Shot Barrage cuts through a couple of members. And Ence are able to fire back. It's an equal team fight.
Yeah, really messy there overall. Honestly, I felt like Ence instantly killing Hoys should have been a good omen, but the rest of the team able to turn it around. And in particular, Mikma was huge, untouched on the back line, just consistently DPSing. And this is where we start to see the problem for Ence. As this game goes later, as this backline becomes more threatening, they need to be able to punish them. They managed to take out Hoys, which by all means should be an instant win for a team fight when you kill an Aphelios essentially as a start, but that's not the case. Mikma able to output so much DPS now on this Azir, has the Haunting Guys available, has the Banshees for safety. You can't fight front to back for Ence and expect to win. And the longer this game goes on, the more true that's going to be.
Oh, Tempered Fate actually lands onto Hoist. That's a perfect target. It's the True Shot Barrage. The chains go pop. And so does Hoist. Ence find the kill.
Beautiful time again.
Signal them going in. Yeah.
Just mispositioned. And if you look, his flash is now available. Couple of seconds after he died, that came up. So a very tight window for Ence. Again, they find the pick they need. This is what they wanted to start this Baron. It's still a slow start, though, and Nidalee's up. So they're going to be looking for the flat fight, and there's a TP.
Yeah, there's the teleport on the flank. This Baron very, very low. Nidalee on that flank. Champen will get caught out by the chains, but it was the clone. Baron continues to be carried on here by Taiki and Kevo, and Godsend maybe think they've peeled away. Maybe don't think they're actually on this objective. It's 46 seconds until that Elder Drake gets picked up. Ence get the Baron. They're going to go for some quick resets and have to get back to the map, because if Godsend can get this Elder, that is potentially shattering for Ence.
It really dissuades your ability to push with Baron. If you get Baron but lose the Elder, then every time you push, you have to be aware of an impending team fight. They have the engage from Pedersen, they have the flank potential from Champen. So the Baron being taken is obviously big, but...
Oh, good chains into the True Shot. Hoys takes a bit of damage, and so does Pedersen. Good pillar there by Ence, and this does give them a bit of room to wiggle in this lane, or in the river, around where the Elder Drake is spawning. It's coming up very shortly. It's now on the map. And Ence just going to use this Baron in the mid lane, try and shove in a little bit here.
Scary thing is here, we've seen a massive level advantage, and obviously Baron, given XP, does factor in as well. Hoist just isn't powerful enough right now to really contest with Ence. He doesn't have the support typically we see from the Lulu, so it's just on his raw stats. And Ence are wanting to start this dragon. They still want the fight. They're looking towards Hoist.
Yeah, Hoist has to flash away this time as the Tempered Fate will catch him out. Everybody on Ence is making their way forward. Kevo throws down the True Shot Barrage. Hoist still alive, though, in the fight as he throws down the Moonlight Vigil. Doesn't quite hit onto anyone. Godsend are going to get sent packing as Ence turn their attention back towards this Elder Drake area. Pedersen's going to take some damage as Simply looks for the chains, goes in for the kill. He's going to find the pot for Simply. Takes out Pedersen. It's a 4v5 now. Elder Drake is up. Baron onto Ence. And Godsend are in a terrifying position right now.
Oh, Champen's looking, though.
Yep, jumps onto Simply. Simply just distorts over the wall to get away. Kevo actually jumps onto C-Boy, looks for the kill. C-Boy's very low, and they do find the shutdown. Ence may have just killed the jungle, and they may just have found themselves their opening. Hoy's once again getting caught out as the true shot gets him. Steph secures the kill. Champion now being chased down. Mikma uses the Emperor's Divide to survive, but he can't survive long as Kevo is able to chase him down and find the kill. Champion on the run. The chains connect, and it's the ace for Ence.
Just beautiful play from them, consistently challenging this back line. Hoy's has just been punished again and again by Ence, and mostly it's down to Seth just with some great play. They baited the Elder Dragon. They knew they were strong. They had the level lead. They had the extra stats from Baron, and they find enough kills to just end the game here. Ence really punishing this one.
Yeah, the death timers are a little bit too long as the turrets will fall. 36 minutes on the clock. They're going to go for a quick glory kill onto Pedestin, but he is able to survive. That's the end of the Nexus. That's the end of the game. This is Ence taking it.
And it was a good performance from Ence. We can't really praise them more than saying that they knew what they had to do, and as much as it was slow, they met their win conditions. The setup around those objectives was good. They kept challenging for picks, and in particular, Seth on the Bard was consistently finding those tempered fates to put Hoy's out of position. But my big question really is, we saw the draft come out from the side of Godsend. We saw them lean towards this Wukong in the top lane. We've talked about, I mean, we said on the desk how typically Hoy's are seen like a weak side bot laner. I feel like if you reshuffle that game, you have, say, a Lulu Aphelios bot lane, and then you have a tank top laner instead. That game could have been Godsend's. I think the big issue there for me was that this Aphelios didn't really have the protection he needed. He was vulnerable, and the Nautilus and the Wukong just didn't offer enough for the team. I think if you lean into the fact that Hoy's can be a carry in the later stages and facilitate him, that game could have been yours. But ultimately, there wasn't the protection there for the Aphelios, and the Wukong just felt non-impactful. You know, we talked about how they tend to lean towards champion. He wasn't able to find anything this game, really.
No, he wasn't, unfortunately. And with that, Ence were able to find themselves the win. Now, we'll let the analyst desk break that down a little bit more. So we're going to cut to a quick break. And when we're back, we'll have the analyst breaking down that Ence victory over Godsend. So don't go anywhere. We'll see you in a second.
People going out tonight, don't care if I'm alive or not. The shock is the taking of an offer of a dressing room of wine and shots. The plot to come and have the time of your life inside with us. Come and have the time of your life tonight. Sound of clapping hands, it's your light, it's your moment, better yet, you're alive, so survive. Another
Welcome back to the Big Brain Hip Brain show where Ence win and everybody else loses. So let's talk about that game. I know Goldbug went for Ence as well. I'm just,
I originally was on the hype train.
There's no originally here. You got the choice. You said, you know what? I'm going with Godsend. There's no return fee here.
I feel lied to. I was told that Godsend had a great carry top lane. I was like, okay. He got smashed in that 1v1.
I might have something to do with that one.
Okay, sorry, Scandal. Continue.
It's okay, guys. It's okay, guys. Let's talk about that game. I think one of the big questions was top lane matchup. There's a lot of kind of hype around Champion. In fact, I'm not going to repeat what Goldbog told me, but essentially there was a lot of hype around Champion, and it didn't really feel like he was able to get the edge that he needed over Nilly in this matchup.
No, and I think the Champion obviously is a good top laner too, but I really think that Nilly is underrated about how he will fare in an individual matchup. I think we saw here in a laning phase like that how Nilly was able to secure his own lead, something we had originally complimented Champion for, but I just felt like Nilly was so much better at doing it here. Now, we can talk about how C-Boy and Champion actually played well together and how they helped out each other in that sense. But going into it, it just felt like that Ence had the tempo all the time. Didn't matter what timestamp we were looking at in the game. But I am still seeing Ence struggle every now and then in the late game. We saw them struggling with closing out games against Singularity, and sadly, I'm still seeing them struggle every now and again in the mid to late game.
Yeah, I think the fundamentals of Ence for their macro is solid. I think individually they have some really strong performers and outmatched their opponents, I think pound for pound talent-wise. And talking about that struggle of closing out late game, I feel like it's the team fights. The team fights were a little bit wonky sometimes. You can see that kind of when they all get on the same page, they just roll over their opponent. But the game really did get prolonged because team fights that they should have won were mis-executed. People weren't standing on the right side of it. People didn't have the right target selection there, and it stalled them out.
Yeah, and talking about wonky fights, I found Godsend going into this with a very wonky play style. They should have had the proactivity with the Nidalee and the Wukong in the early game. You can snowball Champion, you can play more proactive on the map, you have the early game jungler, and there was none of that. Everything was reactive. Ence would push it in a wave, then Godsend would be like, okay, then we'll de-push it and try to fight for this objective and this objective. And then when they didn't have the items to fight for that, they were falling short. And sure, there were fights that Ence should have won, but their indecision or something that has to do with the shot calling didn't allow them to win the fights. But all in all, it felt like Godsend fell short again, realizing where their win conditions were and what playstyle they want to introduce into this game.
I think one of the big issues was that Azir lost Flash relatively. I think it was after level 6 that he lost Flash. And obviously, if you don't have that, you're going to give up your mid priority. It becomes much less safe, especially when you're facing a LeBlanc. So unfortunately, I think that Godsend kind of found themselves in a window where they couldn't contest the mid priority. They couldn't really use the Nidalee. And then at that point, LeBlanc has kill pressure on virtually everyone. Trundle can just walk into River, and that's basically what Ence did. They rotated for Herald very quickly. They found tempo on the map, and they were just more aggressive when they did have tempo. They got more for it.
I also think this correlates to the point we make in the pre-game analysis that we were talking about that Ence are actually evolving here. They are actually developing a playstyle every time. Last game we saw them play, Taiki was actually way better from the previous games, and today I felt like he had some of the same showings. They're really happy to go in and invade with a bot lane priority. I still don't think it was the cleanest way they've done it. I still think there's mistakes, but the game theory about it is developing every time, and also feel like gradually they started playing better team fighting than they did against Singularity. Now, that necessarily isn't saying much because the team fighting against Singularity wasn't very good either, but they're gradually improving every time I see them play, and that makes me happy.
I just have one more small point as like the cherry on top. I loved the Bard play in particular, especially around the mid game. The fact that they were able to unlock their Bard and fight for priority with numbers advantage in the mid lane, and he was like rotating top and bot around these dragon fights, I think is actually really key. I hope to see more of that pick for them.
Well, actually, I've got Taiki standing by to chat to me, so I'm going to bring him in. Taiki, hi, how are you?
Hello. I'm fine.
Good. Now, obviously, I think you were considered, I guess, the underdogs in this particular matchup. I guess maybe you think unfairly in that sense. You definitely looked very, very strong in this particular match. A lot of the discussion going through this game was your team fights and kind of like your ability to convert that into closing out the game. What is it? Is that something that you feel like you need to work on as a team, or is it just that sometimes you just maybe mis-executing where you don't need to?
Considering the first week and last week, I think we still have a bit of issues with how we approach team fighting and objectives in mid and late game, but it's getting there. Like compared to first week, for example, we had clear plans to fight and sometimes executed them well, but there's still a lot to improve on.
Yeah, but obviously, when you do get hold of it, you look really strong. Especially Kavo on that Ezreal today, he was absolutely fantastic. If you were to like look at your team from the outside, if you were to go back and look at your VODs, for instance, what is it the biggest thing that you guys are working on to sort of level yourself up as a roster?
I think the main thing we actually have right now is we focus on our game plan and executing it properly, because especially in the scrims, we have a lot better plans than we did on stage. And as long as we contest objectives and all this stuff correctly, we can actually beat the top teams too.
Yeah, I can definitely see that being the case. And I think, like, finally, before I let you go, there was a lot of talk about Champion versus Nili. Were you confident Nili's just the better top laner in that matchup?
I mean, we just considered if we ban his 2 comfort champions, Nile is gonna be performing much better than him. And even with a lot of jungle help, Nile still held on and did really well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he had the advantage pretty much the entire game. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys play. You seem to be going from strength to strength. I'm on board with what Gulborg is saying. I think Ents are slowly starting to improve, and I really do hope you can contest the top teams in our league. And I guess I'll get to chat to you much more as we go on.
Yeah, all right. Thanks.
Cheers, mate. Bye. All right, guys, quickly before we break, before we go to the next game, which is going to be Monster versus Dusty, what do you make of that statement? Actually, I'm going to specifically ask Goldborg, that statement there. You know, you ban away the 2 comfort champions of Champion, and that you think that a lot of top laners might have a better time.
I don't know if I like the approach. I would honestly have liked if Nila was just so confident that he didn't give a damn that those comfort picks were up. But one of my takeaways from that interview is that they are actually still feeling that they're able to contest top teams. I think they have a long road ahead of them because I still feel like they are making some fundamental mistakes. And I don't necessarily feel like they need to contest every objective on the map all the time. I think they should sometimes take a look at the items, where they are in that sense of the game, and maybe take a look, is it even worth taking this fight now? Because they seem so... They want blood. That's my takeaway from Ence. They really want to fight all the time. And if they're able to pull the trigger at the right moments instead of just pulling the trigger and spraying all over the target, I think they are going to be able to, with improvement over the split, might be able to contest some teams up there and get some upsets in. But as I said, it's going to be a tough, long road ahead of them.
Yeah, well, plenty of weeks still left to go. Lots of improvement to be had. Like I said, we're going to go to a quick break. When we're back, we'll dive into our second game, which will be Monster versus Dusty.